Okay, everybody, we are now live. You may proceed. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the April meeting of the Mountain Capital Community Fund Operating Committee. We've got a good agenda today. We're going to be looking at voting in some new members, going over a success story from one of our funding initiatives or from Mountain BizWorks. But before we do that, we need to, I guess, take attendance and approve our minutes. So to take attendance, do we go around the room and make introductions, or do we? Is that how we should do this? Lynn's nodding, as that's a good way to go. Or should I announce people and say present, voting member or not, and where you represent your institution?
Either way, Jeff, was fine.
Well, let's do that. So I'll just, to make it things easier on the order, because I'm not sure we all see the same grid, I'll just go through and say your name. If you could say hi, if you're a voting member or not, and if you're representing a lender or not, or part of the city or the county, kind of what you're doing here. So hi, I'm Jeff Kaplan. I am the vice chair of the MCCF and a voting member. Thank you. Lynn, we'll go to you next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Smith. I'm chair of the Mountain Community Capital Fund and a voting member.
Thank you very much. Next on my list is Angelica Driver.
Good morning. I'm Angelica Driver, Administrative Assistant for Community and Economic Development Department of the City of Asheville.
Thank you, Angelica. And just to confirm, I see an 855 number, and that is just our broadcast number, right? Or call-in number.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we'll skip that one. Thank you very much. Zuri Anuel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Surirma Anuel. I am the director of the Western Women's Business Center, and I am not a voting member.
Thank you. Next on my screen is Nikki Reed.
Good morning. My name is Nikki Reed. I am currently serving as the interim director for Community and Economic Development. Sam Powers has recently retired, and so I will be, we're on the agenda to be voted in later as voting members for the committee, right? So I'll be assuming Sam Powers' position on the committee.
Thank you. We're glad you're with us. Next on my list is Jesse Maxwell.
Hi guys, I'm Jessie. I'm with Self-Help. We are a lender on the program and also help manage or just hold the funds for this program as well. So it's a good thing that I'm not a voting member.
That could be a conflict, right? So that's why we have this. Thank you so much, Jesse. All right, next on my list is Dee Williams.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is well. My name is Dee Williams, and I am the president of Dee Williams and Company Incorporated. We provide technical assistance to ethnic minority businesses and technical assistance as well to nonprofits as far as their financial activities and construction estimating activities are concerned. Thank you.
Dee, thank you so much. Next on my list is the call-in number. I believe that's Tony McDowell.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry about the call-in. I'm scooting around from meeting to meeting this morning. Tony McDowell with the City Finance Department, replacing Barbara Whitehorn. I do believe Barbara was the member before me. I've been the interim finance director for the last couple of months. And actually, as of this past Monday, the interim part of that is going away. So I'm going to be the city's finance director moving forward. And like Nikki, I think I'm going to be voted in later on, hopefully.
That's right.
So thank you.
Tony, I don't know if you saw because you're on the phone, but you got a round of applause from the committee welcoming you, congratulating you on your new role.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we're glad to have you. And then last but certainly not least, Timothy Love.
This is Tim Love, Buncombe County Government, voting member, and definitely want to take the opportunity to congratulate Tony McDowell on that recent change. Congratulations.
Very good.
Thanks,
okay, so I believe we have a quorum with at least 5 voting members, so we can begin. And our first item on the agenda is to approve the March minutes. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review those. They were very well documented. Robin did a great job. And I do want to mention that Robin is no longer on our committee. Her term expired and she chose not to continue. So we do have an opening. Yes, Lynn?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Angelica did those minutes.
Angelica, oh,
yeah.
Phenomenal job, Angelica. I am terribly sorry for heaping such praise on somebody who can't even hear that unless they've called in. Angelica, I am beyond impressed with your minute taking.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
We still do need a new secretary though, so we'll talk about that later. Lynn's filling in today. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes or amend up to the committee.
This is Tim Love, motion to approve.
I'll second.
Very good. Now to vote on screen share, we ask that folks show their cameras. Tony, in this case, if you want to speak up first, show of hands for those in favor of approving the minutes. I see 1, 2, 3. I approve. Very good. Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes. Minutes are approved. And I do realize we had a vote before we brought in new voting members, but that's okay. I think we're still kosher on the numbers wise. But now that brings us to our next agenda item, voting in Tony McDowell and Nikki Reed, as they said in their introductions. These are both city appointee roles. And as just a quick overview and reminder, if this is your first meeting, the board is 4 individuals from the community, 2 appointed by the city, 2 appointed by the county, 2 staff from the city, 2 staff from the county, and then our non-voting members represent our lending institutions, our CDFIs. So with that, I wonder if we can do this in one vote to approve both, or do we vote individually? We can probably do it as one.
I think so.
Okay, so I would state as a motion to vote in Tony McDowell and Nikki Reed as the city staff voting members.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote in Nikki Reed and Tony McDowell, both from the city of Asheville, as voting members.
Thank you so much, Dee. Do you have a second?
This is Tim Love. I'll second.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. So all those in favor of approving Tony McDowell and Nikki Reed as voting members to the committee, show of hands. Okay, and then the motion passes. So welcome, congratulations. There's a lot of shifting priorities and positions for you both. So thank you for your, as we would say in the entrepreneurship world, high tolerance for ambiguity. Just jump right in and add some value. Quite entrepreneurial of you. Speaking of entrepreneurs, let's talk about our third agenda item, success story. If you all have that attachment, Lynn did send it out. Very well put together success story, almost a case study. I believe it was put together by Justin Thompson at Mountain BizWorks. This highlights and tells a story of C. Fletcher Hawley, Calvin Fletcher's entrepreneurial dreams becoming a reality. We have 10 minutes dedicated to this, so we can go up to 10 minutes on discussing or sharing insights we pulled from this case study. I, for one, was really moved about this. This is a story of an entrepreneur who was, we call it a technician role, someone who was doing the job, who decided, you know what, I can do this for myself. I can turn this into my own venture and be in the driver's seat, if you don't mind the play on words. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, building your own destiny. It's that independence, that self-reliance. And I think Calvin's story is a great example of that. Any other comments or thoughts or insights about Calvin's story?
I'll just share that in an update to our Planning and Economic Development Committee a couple months ago, we had the honor of having Calvin come and present to the committee. So it was really great to hear from him and hear his story. And from what we heard, it sounds like the program's really worked well in his favor. So glad to hear from him. And it was a good update to have.
It's so nice to see these kinds of success stories because it brings to life the work that people are doing. I think it also can serve to inspire other budding entrepreneurs who think, oh, this wouldn't work for me or this program couldn't be for me. So to see a live success story is always inspirational to other people who may want to follow, not necessarily in that business model, but just to become a business owner, to get funding and to grow their business and then, open up unlimited opportunities of wealth for their families.
Hey, Jeff, or anyone really, I wonder if, since this is public and some folks may not have had a chance to read the success story. Do you mind just summarizing kind of the business and the story, just high level?
Sure. I'll do my best to paraphrase and not read it word for word. Or I could. No, I'm not gonna do that. All right. So in 2008, Calvin Fletcher, owner of C. Fletcher Hauling, was driving a dump truck for a construction company, working long hours and low pay for the state of North Carolina. After 8 years, he realizes he had what he needed to transform his skills into his own entrepreneurial opportunity. He had the work ethic, he had the drive, and he had the plan. The only thing he needed to make this dream a reality was the capital to do it. Mountain BizWorks, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Well, in 2017, he took his business plan, head to the bank, but the bank wasn't able to assist as they don't do loans for start small businesses. They liked the idea and recommended Calvin contact Mountain BizWorks. With resources from Mountain BizWorks, he was able to fine-tune his plan. He received a small business loan to get the business up and running. The partnership has been long-lasting. In addition to the loan, Calvin was able to get capital not just for the startup costs, but came up along the way to growth. Things like truck repairs, naturally with dump trucks, from truck repairs to COVID lending, even to funding for a second truck when it came time to expand. Calvin had the backing he needed from the Mountain Community Capital Fund. And then some highlights about how great this fund is. Let me see what else we can say. In his own words, Calvin points out two tips to those like him who are ready to work hard for their dreams. Do your homework on costs and make sure that you have the financial backing you need to cover the unexpected. The work is out there, and with his eyes in the future, Calvin looks forward to further expanding his business and finding more successes in the industry. Now I'm not reading, but I feel like this is a really good example to use for the MCCF because it shows the immediate impact funding has. So this isn't necessarily a long-term investment that took years and years to find a return. This was an immediate cash infusion that helped him grow and expand to meet the capacity that he was, I guess, selling for. So, it was a lot to learn from this case study and success story about where our fund, really shines. Tim, I hope I did you proud with that summary. Any other comments, thoughts, feelings, anything else to share about this great story?
Hey, Jeff, I just want to add, based on the story, thank you for sharing that, is that I see that often that new businesses just need that one loan to start and then they can go on. Like we've seen similar cases. I actually have a trucking company that we gave them the loan for one and now he has 5 on his own. He didn't ask for a second loan. So all he needed was just that one-time loan. So I just wanted to add that because it is very important to give them that push for them, for businesses to move forward.
Absolutely. That's great, Zuri. I hope that this is not the last success story we hear about. I hope that we hear many, many more from the loans that this fund guarantees for our partners. And I mean, we should really take another moment to celebrate this. This group has been working for, I think as a group, 2 years. And before that, I mean, 2 to 4 years of just getting this fund together with the city and the county. So this is a momentous occasion to celebrate, the real impact this fund has. I'm proud of all of you, all the work we've done together. Any other comment on Calvin's success story? There's no action items, there's no vote. So if not, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Okay, I will take that sign of silence as we are moving on. Our next agenda item is to identify community partners. Now, this is an open discussion. I'll set it up as this is a follow-up to last month's meeting when we were discussing opportunities to increase the guarantee amount, of which, if you saw in the minutes, I believe at that time, and I don't know if it's changed, I don't believe it has, we have $116,000 remaining for the guarantee of the fund. And so that is a ceiling we have on how much we can support our partners in lending. Therefore, the idea was, are there other community partners we should be approaching to discuss joining the MCCF in the guarantees? And with that, I'll kick it off to the group to discuss community partners.
So I'm glad to chime in. This is Tim. And so I think the name that always comes up, obviously, is Dogwood and their interest in supporting this type of venture. I know they have, in particular, I think they candidly said their top priority relates to equity moving forward. And while small business growth isn't clearly a health concern, there's clearly offshoots as folks are able to create income, lead their own businesses, and the impacts to their health. So I think there's clearly some alignment there. I do know that Dogwood has taken some efforts to streamline their grant application process. Before it was more kind of open-ended, and now I think there's literally a button on the website. So if you want to submit a grant application, you can. So maybe that's an action that this committee would want to take. So.
Thank you, Tim. I think that's a really smart, easy first step. And that portal it's like their intake form, right? So anybody can hit the button on the portal to establish inquiry and build a relationship with Dogwood. But anybody like to volunteer to maybe take a draft or go for the opening of the application in that portal? I'll volunteer myself then.
Beat me to it.
Well, in that case, I will email you a draft of the application before it submits, Tim.
Glad to support.
Also in the minutes, Robin had mentioned the Community Foundation as a potential community partner in the funding pool. I actually don't know much about the Community Foundation. Does anyone else have insight or leads or introductions over there?
The person this is Dee Williams. The person that you'll need to contact is Virginia Dollar. It's the Community Foundation. She's a senior program officer. She is usually your entree in if you get funded at all. So that may be a good first step. Her last name is, of course, Dollar. So first name Virginia. She'll come. She's very good about doing site visits and talking to you and all of it. So at least that's been my contact.
Dee, do you have enough of a contact or relationship that you would feel comfortable reaching out to Virginia?
I can reach out to Virginia. I do have funding from Virginia, though. That's the only thing. And I am contracted to another nonprofit, but I can reach out to her for you, and I'll copy you on the email by way of introduction or whatever else I can do. Yeah.
Do you think that'd be appropriate?
I'm also, and just for disclosure purposes, involved in a contractual relationship with Dogwood Health Trust. So I just wanted to mention that for just disclosure. So
that's appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Jeff, I wonder as we're touching base with different partners, do we need just a piece of collateral that the classic one pager that summarizes what we're about, what we've accomplished, all that stuff?
You will probably need one, Tim. This is Dee again, and I'm sorry to interject, but generally WNC and DHT both want letters of inquiry or interest. And it's typically a one pager. It's typically, asking for further audience with them or whoever their program officer is. That would be a smart bet. And generally, they'll follow up, if they're interested in the letter of inquiry, then they'll follow up with the hard dollar ask that you might want to, if you're asked to submit beyond the letter of interest. That's generally the way I do it, but anyway, whatever.
That's great to know. So as for collateral, the only thing I can pull up is the flyer we made prior to the October 2019 info session we had at the Eddington Center. So I'm not sure how or who would lead the creation of some kind of document. I mean, I was actually trying to find a logo for the MCCF just this week, and I couldn't find one. I don't think one exists. So as far as, I guess, brand documents as a shared program by the city and the county, I don't want to put my nose in someone else's rose. So I'm not sure how those partners, maybe one of them could speak to how something like this could be created.
I'm glad to chime in from the county perspective. You know, Jeff, I can share kind of a one-pager format that we use for the One Buncombe Fund, which different, but, you know, similar. City-county partnership, community partnership. So that would be relatively easy to do. And in terms of branding of this fund, that I don't know. I think that would be relatively easy to do if we could put some designers to the task. I don't know if y'all have any thoughts. I'd be glad to put it into our communications queue here at the county, and then we could vet something as a group.
Do you think that'd be possible by next month's meeting, by our May meeting?
I don't see why not. It depends on how strongly we feel about the logo design and such things. So. But I'll go ahead and create the ask now, and then maybe we can have an offline if anyone in this group is interested in just talking design principles and things like that. Would anybody like to volunteer?
Tim, I can work with you on that.
Great.
Thank you, Lynn and Tim. I mean, that's great. So when we're reflecting on these two community partners we discussed, they're both very local to our backyards. Are there foundations or groups statewide or regionally that we should be looking at as well?
So I'm talking a lot, so y'all stop me, but there are tons of grant funds flowing from all angles. And so I wonder, you know, for instance, I know there's a Golden Leaf grant right now for the Western Prosperity Zone, which is like 18 counties that potentially could apply. There's a lot of ARC funding floating around. So I think there's a lot of options out there. I wonder if there's a way for us to compile that and as a team, maybe at our next meeting, kind of evaluate each of the options. Maybe everyone can study, because there are lots of funds. It's actually kind of hard to keep up with. I'm sure many of y'all can relate to that.
And that Dogwood does a pretty good job of collating and sharing grant opportunities. I'm not sure if the two you mentioned are included on that list, but I think that doesn't preclude the other, that we could be looking at all of these and more.
This is Dee again. Sorry to interject, but Dogwood Health Trust has what they call the Leverage Fund, which allows you access into other foundations that are outside of the region. So you may want to ask, one of your asks may not only be for investment or infusion into this based on its merits that you'll cite, but also ask them to accept you into the Leverage Fund. And as such, what they'll do is provide a professional grants person for you, pay them, and then that will give you access to, and the Golden Leaf is on their list, by the way. I usually get it once a month, and they'll send it to you, whatever, if you're accepted into the Leverage Fund. And they'll also provide the professional grants person who will write with you, for you, whatever, and keep doing it at no expense or cost. And you just look at what you want to apply for, and that person comes in. So you may want to, that may be one of your asks. You may also want to ask them for program-related investment. I don't mean to get off on a technical bent, but I just want to provide what I know may be helpful. That's patient capital, as you well know. It has the ability to lend their monies to you as well. So you may want to mention that as one of the line item asks that you go for. That's it.
Dee, I appreciate your interjections. Keep them coming. Very helpful.
I'm gonna
That
keep
sounds like a
chiming
handful.
in, y'all.
Please do, Tim.
So I would like to have a discussion about the existing funds and how those can be further leveraged or not. And we don't have to do that now. We can do that after we talk about partners. But I think that's a question that I think I'll need to be able to resolve, at least internally as a Buncombe County staffer, before we could make an additional ask, certainly of the commission. So I just wanted to put that out there. But we can get to it when appropriate.
I think that does dovetail into our next agenda item of reevaluating guarantee percentages.
Mhm.
We're trying to stretch the dollar more, return of phrase. So thank you for bringing that up. We've got a handful of agenda items or action items to follow up with on this agenda item of identifying community partners. Any further discussion on this topic? Otherwise, it looks like Tim is going to be working on a one-pager format and making asks of the county to get into the design queue. I'll be taking the first draft at the Dogwood Portal, Leverage Fund, and Program-Related Investment. Thank you again, Dee, for those recommendations. Dee is going to introduce us to Virginia Dollar at the Community Foundation, and we'll also, because it plays into the Dogwood component as well, I'll look at the Golden Leaf and ARC grants and try to put that list together.
Just one quick note.
Yes.
Brenda shared with me that the city's designer had done some work on a logo. So Tim and Lynn, I'll share that with you both as perhaps a jumping off point. So, okay.
Very good. Other action items or suggestions on this topic of identifying community partners? Okay, I'm taking the silence as approval to move ahead. Okay, on our next agenda item, we have 15 minutes to discuss reevaluating guarantee percentages on loans. The setup here is that we guarantee 85% of the loan for our partners, which is why we come to that cap of $116,000 left available in our funding pool. And discussion was kicked off last week regarding if we could adjust that number, which may need a bylaws change, that could allow us to theoretically stretch a dollar more, or if the guarantee was lower, we could be lending more. It would free up more of the cash. With that, anything else to add to setup? Yes. Jesse, please.
Yeah, sorry, the finger and then the long search for the
I was trying to find your unmute. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now back in the services and duties agreement just to confirm, because I feel like I remember that the lending amount limit was based on total loan dollars as opposed to just the guaranteed percentage, which would definitely change the total loan volume. Does anybody remember that off the top of their head while I'm frantically searching for it?
The maximum loan amount is $70,000. That can be guaranteed. So, for example,
Right.
you could loan more, but only guarantee up to $70,000.
So I think for the fund, the total loan volume cannot exceed $530,000, which would be not the guarantee portion of that, but like the loan balance associated with the fund. Are we all thinking the same thing and I'm just messing around in my head?
I think it's a good discussion. Depending, I think we need to study it. My read on it is that the guarantee percentage can be up to 85%, which is like the coverage for the CDFIs. But the key being up to or a maximum of 85%. So I wonder, and I could be reading this all wrong, maybe we should get legal to take a closer look, but if we dropped it from 85% to 75%, we've suddenly created not new funds, but we've we're able to provide additional loan guarantees.
So this is what I want to flag, because I think as the service and duties agreements, like according to the language there, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so definitely worth bringing in the legalese experts. But it says that the current maximum lending amount is $530,000, which would be loan volume, not the guaranteed portion. So if we did $530,000 in total lending, that would assume about $450,000 in the like actual guaranteed portion of those loans, assuming that they're all guaranteed at 85%. If that's the case, if we reduced the guarantee percentage, that wouldn't change our total loan volume currently. So it wouldn't technically be freeing up any dollars unless we go back and look at our leverage amount. So that being like, let's assume we keep the 85% guarantee. I don't really have strong feelings either way. I'm sure I could develop strong feelings in some case or another if you give me a few minutes, but let's keep the guarantee. I think the question that we need to be asking is twofold. A, do we want to add to the loan fund and preserve our more or less sort of one-to-one leverage ratio, which is what the current service and duties agreement articulates, meaning that we wouldn't have to change anything in the service and duties agreement. We would just be adding more dollars to the pool that we can then use. The other option would be, and there's also, a combination of these two, would be to reevaluate the service and duties agreement, come upon like an agreed upon incidence, and then decide how much would we be comfortable leveraging the fund, meaning increasing the maximum lending amount that we're okay to do beyond this 1-to-1 ratio. So saying that we could do like a 2-to-1 ratio or whatever that would be. Does that make sense?
I have a question. I do apologize for interjecting. One of the things that just from reviewing the last meeting's minutes and participating in that meeting is that we don't have a lot of clarity as far as the loans, as far as their repayment rates. I mean, they get almost an automatic 6-month delay but as far as performance, I'm always wanting to know how something is performing. That way you can make an informed decision on whether or not to put more dollars into the fund. Then we look at a couple of those loans and they're already come up. They've been a year ago, but it looks like they're being considered for refinance. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing kind of needs to be assessed at where we are on these specific loans before we start talking about adding total dollars to the fund or lowering the risk rate, because risk is always based on actuarial tables, based on performance and all of that. So we have to have data to make informed decisions. If we're just going precariously by, I feel good talking about the successes, but we also have a due diligence to protect what we're doing and to know exactly how this fund is performing. So I would say that a workshop may be in order for us. That little form that we keep talking about that we never seem to get for each loan, that is why I've been pushing so hard for it, because it will not only give you demographics, it also tells you about how they perform in terms of a lot of aspects, and it's cumulative. We don't have that right now. So that's all I'm saying is I think there needs to be a workshop with every loan that we've lent because it looks like either one or two of them even coming up from a year ago for refi or refinance. That's all that I would add. Thank you.
No, I think that's a really great, much better stated than I could have said, Dee. But yeah, in terms of thinking about leveraging or adding dollars, I also wanted to flag that there are certain trigger points that we need to be monitoring at every committee meeting. And I'm going to copy and paste this in the chat. So there are 3 key trigger points. One would be delinquent loans as a percentage of total outstanding principal, credit loss default, and total loan volume. Those are the 3 trigger points. And these are actually things that we would need to have reconciled anyway as we're applying, if we're going to apply for additional dollars, because that's going to be a main question, or like around risk tolerance. Because one thing that I have in my experience in working with loan funds like this, sometimes it's important to be very clear and make sure that the any grant that everyone's comfortable with the same level of risk. And that's not always the case. And sometimes it takes some convincing just because people aren't super clear on that. But a lot of these sort of trigger points and loan pieces that we want to look at and make sure that Dee mentioned, like seeing how everyone's doing, that's data that I'm fairly certain Yasleen can definitely pull. And I think I saw her just pop up too. So I'm like, sorry, Yasleen, that I'm committing you to things. But it should be like, I suspect is stuff that they're already tracking. It's the kind of stuff that we like to track. So pulling that data that's a doable thing. We're not going to have to create a whole lot from scratch, I don't think.
This is great, Jesse. Thank you for having that at the ready and to paste that into the chat. Also welcome, Yasleen. I would suggest that we make the trigger points a regular part of our agenda every meeting, just as part of the, after we do the minutes, let's get into it could be a running worksheet. Let's review it. Let's just make that top of the meeting to get level set.
Like any other, and I do hate to interject again, like any other lending committee, we need a base of data. That's the only reason why we came up with those sheets, those informational sheets per loan, because it kind of gives us a profile, a point of discussion without the identity of each lender being revealed to the public. Let me just say that it will also give us a comfortable level as far as risk tolerance is concerned. And then it becomes so important when you go out to foundations, because these are going to be the questions that they're going to ask. I mean, they like to feel good too. But when you start talking about a program related investment, even though it's patient money, it's a rate of return on investment, and it's risk from an actuarial standpoint. And I hate to outstanding unpaid principal balance. These are the kinds of things that let you know whether or not these loans are performing. If they've been, they've had a 6-month window to sort of get on their feet with, and then another 6-month window with interest only payments, then what is the rate of return or flow back into the loan pool? There has to be, this is what we're here for, is to review all of these items. So that's all that I would say. I do apologize for being long.
Dee, I think it's taken me 2 years to fully get the impact of what you've been trying to push this board towards. So thank you for not giving up, being persistent.
So I just did share a spreadsheet with Lynn on all of the current loans, the balance, the original amounts, and the dates, and what their status is of payment is. So I don't know if, Lynn, you want to share that now, or you'd rather just send it out to the entire committee, but.
It hasn't come through yet, so I'm watching my email to see. Did you email it, Yasleen?
I did.
I don't see it yet. Can you share it? Because I'm still waiting on it.
I can.
Okay. And then I'll be happy to email this out to everyone.
Are these cumulative, may I ask, from the first loan up to the ones that you've got pending now?
No,
Yasleen, I'm sorry.
It is not. This is just the loans that have funded and closed and that are in our portfolio.
Okay, when you say, I'm sorry, you said these were the ones that you had closed?
These are loans that have been closed and funded, fully funded.
Through MCCF, is that with the
Yes.
guarantee? Okay, how many
Yes.
of those are now?
There's 8 of them.
Okay, all right.
Can everybody
And so,
see my screen?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Okay.
Can you zoom in a little bit, Yasleen? Thank you.
Okay. So here is the current data for all of the loans that we have closed and fully funded. The payment status, they're all current, close date, the current balance that's owed, and as well as the maturity dates.
Thing is, what is the cash flow back into pool versus, is there a percentage that I guess I'm just too, I don't know, I can take a calculator and do it. I'll have to.
Not really something that we have been calculating because the guarantee was for the entire, the life of the loan. So it wasn't something that we've been tracking.
Right.
So, yeah. Not
Okay,
sure
just,
gonna
yeah,
work that way, as long as, at least that's not what was on the guidelines from the underwriting procedures and the entire loan guidelines, though. So the program guidelines. So that's not something that we've been tracking. But in my experience, I know that there was a conversation about maybe releasing some of these, releasing some of the guarantees on these loans. I do not think that that's probably something that would be feasible at this point, especially with COVID. A lot of these clients have applied for disaster relief, which has allowed them to also make their payments and, you know, also have additional capital. So it's just not enough data for us. Okay, you can go ahead and you know, you don't need the guarantee behind your loan. So I don't think that that's feasible at this point, removing the guarantee amount from these clients.
may I also ask, God, I'm just, is this a sheet that you send out to Lynn every month, this particular itemization?
This is not, this is what I create, that this is what we pulled from directly from our loan managing site so that I could send it to you.
Okay, so what about the sheet that we came up with as a group with not only the demographic data, but also some of the questions that you know, I mean, I've been pushing that thing for so long now, it's just getting old, and you know,
I'm not really sure what sheet
the sheet that Jane and I came up with like race, year of business origin, where did you get the information, Schedule C, partnership return, was it depreciation? Yeah,
that's being presented to you every month when the loan is being presented. So I'm not.
It's sent every month.
Whenever a loan is being presented, that sheet is the one that goes out.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure.
Was it sent this time? Because I must have missed it. It was sent this time, right?
There are no loans to present this month, so I haven't sent it out.
Okay.
When there's a loan to be presented.
Okay. I guess what's happened is I don't have that sheet because we were talking about redoing it. If it's redone, I'd like to get a couple people from this advisory board or operating committee involved in the revamp of that. And I would also like to put in, I've had some numerous issues with I'm not even gonna go into it with these computer systems I got all around me. I've had some real issues, security issues. I would like to make a request that every loan, the sheets that Jane and I came up with be sent to me on each loan and with the breakdown, the demographic breakdown as well. If we can. And also I had another question, and I'll suspend, if you will. How many of these loans are new money and how many of them are refinances?
You can see on here, we only have one that's a refi. Then we've refied into another one. So
okay.
Here it says loan number 2 has been restructured into loan number 5.
I saw Lynn put a hand up a few moments ago.
Thank you, Jeff. I almost lost my thought. Oh, so to kind of answer Ms. D's question, we haven't really been receiving the sheets when Yasleen presents. Yasleen will usually share her screen and we'll have it up. we haven't been getting them in email. So you haven't missed them. We just haven't been getting them. So if you want us to start getting those sheets in advance of the meetings, we can do that. And I'll just work with Yasleen and getting them to me or Jeff, and we can send them out or going forward, because we're coming up on where we'll be electing officers. So it may not be me, but whomever the chair will be, will get those out to the group at large.
Yeah, and just to summarize this conversation, I think we're talking about two different sheets. One of them is on loan presentations, and one of them is on historic tracking of the fund performance. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right,
Yes.
Jeff. I have not received either, but I'm talking about the loan presentation sheets. We've only been
Understood.
showing those. I think we had conversations about if we wanted to send those out to everybody. I can't remember, but if we want to go forward, if everybody wants those loan presentation sheets, we can get them to you. And then I think we talked in prior meetings about wanting to make additions to the tracking sheet to kind of have more information. And I see it looks like it was a little different in this presentation Yasleen has with her current and their loans. And I think we were talking about that. So maybe we can have a conversation about what we want on that sheet specifically going forward. And if you wanted those loan presentation sheets or not, you all can discuss if you want to get those in advance of the meetings.
And just for vernacular, may I ask, are we talking about the loan presentation sheets, the sheets that Jane and I put together?
Mhm.
We made a decision about those, and I know folks, and the city attorney even reviewed those for PII, and they were considered okay. I don't know what the issue is, because one of the things that we don't have, when you say people of color, the SBA has definitions of ethnic minority businesses, and we don't even have that. So that sheet does at least provide that. It talks about where the information is coming from, whether it's Schedule C or a 1065, whether it's depreciation income that shows a performing loss or whatever. Those are specific things that can be used to assess where a business is. So it was not put together just to be putting together for fun. It is for true disclosure, discussion, and data collecting, if you will. So that's it. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Dee. So it sounds like we have an action to follow up on building what our historic tracking document looks like based off of Yasleen's document of the loans Mountain Bizworks made. And I would also suggest we include Jesse's in the chat, the triggers. I think one without the other doesn't give us a lot of data to make decisions from. So you need a whole holistic picture here. How does the committee feel about that? As one of our next action items to build a more robust tracking document. Even if it's not the same sheet, that's okay. It could be one workbook with multiple tabs. I think we can all figure that out to just pull the information we need to make the decisions and understand our historic progress.
I agree. I think it's time that we do that as we start building. You know, this was a new thing for us, a new fund, a new concept, so to speak. So we're learning as we go. But I think now we've got 2 years under our belt. We know where we want to go and what we need. So I think it's time to, and I think the more information we have up front, the less questions we'll have during our meetings. And at some point, we'll be accountable to someone in the community or something. So best to get all that kind of ready now so that our foundation is good.
Yeah, certainly if we're going to be going to funders to, increase our potential, then we're going to need to back it up with some claims. So Yasleen, if I may, not to put you on the spot, but as the holder of most of the information regarding the fund and performance and some of those trigger points like delinquent loan percentages and credit loss default percentages, could we ask Mountain Bizworks to lead that tracking as well?
So, I mean, I don't really know what other tracking there would be to provide the sheet that I provided. Essentially, that would, if there was a delinquent loan and there was a certain amount that was delinquent, it would show on that report. So that would be, I could definitely share that, whether that's quarterly or annually. with the committee to keep you guys up to date. And of course, whenever there is a loan that does become delinquent, that will be addressed.
Okay, so what you're saying, Yasleen, and I think I hear the committee saying that they would like to have better tracking mechanisms. Is that possible? Can you provide that in the sheet that Jane and I worked on, as well as what the committee might come up with? So, because we are going to be held accountable for this. We are the oversight.
I can totally get that. I guess I'm just confused because the sheet that you and Jane created doesn't allow to track that information of whether they're delinquent or not.
Well, you have a little sheet there that does that, but in addition to the little sheet that you have, which is fine, we would like to have the sheet with the overall
yeah, I can send those out. That's not an issue. I can send those out. Yeah,
that would be great. That would be great. I think
I can send the ones out for the loans that have been already created and funded.
Jesse, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, just so that I can make sure that I'm on the same page as everyone else. Does someone have a copy of this? Or Dee, do you have a copy of the data sheet that you're talking about? Because when I'm pulling up in the files, I'm seeing a couple of different iterations. And I just want to make sure that I'm operating with the same final version as everybody else.
I will have to send it out. We sent it out a number of times, and I just recently sent it to the city attorney again, and city manager. So I will send that to y'all or you or everybody again. I will. I can do it just now. Okay.
Thanks, Dee.
Thank you.
And Yasleen, I don't know that you necessarily need any help with this, but if you do want help with sort of consolidating some data or coming up with an easier to use version, I'm happy to play around with formats with you just so that it's not all on your shoulders to turn around real quick.
Thank you.
And to add, I'm glad to participate as well, but I think what, Yasleen, I think what Jesse introduced today were a handful of trigger points that to me just look like calculations based on the data you already have. So I think that's all that is being introduced that's new from my perspective. As an example, delinquent loans as a percentage of outstanding principal, that percentage would be 0 because we have no delinquent loans, as I understand it. But just creating those metrics that are calculated, I think, is all we're really talking about. If anyone differs, please.
I'm going to ask a question about Google Hangouts. Yasleen, can you see chat before you joined? Like on Zoom, you can't see what people posted before you join the meeting. Because in the chat, Jesse posted the trigger points.
I can.
Okay, so cool. So make sure we all see the same thing. Lynn, I saw you raised your hand. I think you're muted. Bingo.
I should know better than that. I wanted to go back to Yasleen when she mentioned us removing guarantees. I think if you could expand on that a little more. And I think we've been talking about lowering, not necessarily removing all, but do you see the same problem if we were to talk about lowering the percentage of a guarantee on a loan?
I do. Like I said, we have not had enough information to really make a decision as to these loans are going to be successful or not. I mean, we're really the longest loan that we've had is about a year. So there's just not enough, I guess, payment history to make the decision. I mean, and the last year hasn't been, the greatest year. So due to that too, I don't think at this point it really would be okay for us, or we wouldn't feel comfortable with lowering that guarantee at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So,
go
ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say, I feel we've got 10 minutes over a lot of time for this budget, for this agenda item. So I want to be aware that our meeting does wrap in 5 minutes at 10:30. I think this is all very good and worthwhile discussion. It's an important one to have. Are there any final thoughts on this topic, which began as reevaluating the guarantee percentages on loans?
I'd like to just chime in quickly. I would like to have a conversation, or not a conversation, a meeting. I think Jesse, I think you need to be a part of that. I'd like to be there, and anyone else is welcome to kind of look at the services and duties agreement and identify kind of what we think is possible or what potentially will hold us back in the future. As I heard Jesse describe it, if we believe that our total loan amount is somehow restricted by this services and duties agreement, I think that's something we'll have to tackle anyway if we want to continue to move forward. I don't think we want to be capped at $530,000 in total loans. I think we would want that to be more open-ended as long as it's supported financially through those core funds. So I think I'd like to do that as a small group. If there's anyone that would like to join Jesse and I, of course, welcome. But that way we can bring something back to the group that's a little bit more specific about what we need to do over the next year, 2 years, whatever it is, to continue to grow this fund.
Thank you.
Hey, and this is Tony with the city.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject. I'm going to have to jump off here in just a moment to go to another meeting. And I was just going to throw out a suggestion, and I don't want to speak for Nikki, but being new to the committee, I was thinking it might be helpful just to, between now and the next time we meet, just to have like a kind of a 101 meeting with you all to kind of get up to speed on where we're at with the fund and the loans and all that. I think that would be really helpful for me for sure.
Agreed. And I know, Tony, we do have an orientation with Rosanna, but I think I would certainly benefit from it. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm sorry. I didn't realize we had that orientation. You're right, Nikki. Maybe we have that first. And if we have additional questions after that, we can get back together with folks.
That'd be great.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. And I've got to go.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. So wrapping up, it sounds like we're gaining more and more action items out of this meeting, which I take as a sign of a very productive committee. So I am encouraged and optimistic. Lynn, since you are taking the minutes, I think that after this, you and I will, if we could share this over email and then do a recap email to folks before the minutes go out within the next, by Monday, probably, of action items before the next meeting.
That sounds good. Yeah, sure.
Let's do that just as a keep it top of mind and the easy list to reference. Jesse, you had a hand?
Do we know when the next meeting is yet?
Yes, it's always the I think it's today. The second Friday of the month.
Okay, so it's not being impacted by the February Okay.
It is the first Friday of the month, so the next meeting is scheduled for May 7th.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Our next agenda item was a loan presentation. Yasmin said there's no loans to present from Mountain BizWorks. Do any of our other lenders have a loan to present today? Didn't think so, right? Okay, so we'll move on. The list of loans Yasmin did share with us, that looks like it did not change from the last meeting. Is that right? So we can strike that agenda item also and move on. And the last one is reviewing the up-to-date loan approval. Are we talking about the same thing? Is this the same? Was that in reference to a document of approving loans? Or it's loan approval in general?
I think we did that with no new anything to approve. So I think we're fine on that one.
Very good. And then the last item here says portfolio manager. I'm not sure what that agenda item is actually in reference to now that I'm looking at it. Okay. In that case, is there anything else from the committee? If there's not, we'll move on to public comment. Okay, the committee would entertain any public comment at this time. I'll wait about 10 more seconds to make sure that anybody who wants to speak up, who's called in, can. Very good. Then with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our April meeting.
I so move.
I'll
And
second.
do we have- Very good. Thank you, Nikki. All in favor of adjourning? Okay, very good. We are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Lynn, I'll connect with you offline to make sure we recapture all the action items that are going to go out over an email. All right, thank you all so much. Have a great day. Take care.
Thanks all.